Okay, today I want to share some of the most common elements you will find in radiology RFPs, and also I want to give you some insight on why these things are important and how they affect other people. Whatever you may think of mission statements, every large capital project in radiology has one, and executives love them. It's a good idea to get good at writing and editing them. Something like, the mission of the project is to enhance our outstanding clinical care through expertise in medical imaging and interpretation by way of the innovation and advances in imaging brought about by this project. Something like that. And don't pay any attention to Slim the Wandering Skeleton. He sometimes shows up in my PowerPoints. You want to use an implementation strategy that has deadlines and measurable outcomes. It's difficult to convince people in the suit that your project is on track or successful without empirical data, which is why it's important to have those dates and measurable outcomes in your project RFP. You want to make each criteria a separate line in the RFP. Avoid sentences that say something like, it should be able to do this and that, because the that frequently gets forgotten about. You want to use shall, as in the vendor shall provide 24/7 end-to-end product support. This is strong language and it makes perfectly clear what the product must be able to do. Don't give the vendor any room to be ambiguous in their response. And this also makes purchasing happy, because when you write an RFP like this, it makes it easy for them to track all the criteria and the related project costs. So this is particularly helpful to them if the project has multiple funding sources, like part of it comes from operational and part of it comes from capital, something like that. So that will make them happy. You need to include good data about your patient and procedural volumes. You need to include accurate information about your modalities, including type, location, and age. Remember, you're asking the vendors to give you a proposal for a service or software. The better information you give them, the more accurate the solution they give you back. And this makes your vendor sales staff happy. Keep in mind they really want to sell you their product, and they will appreciate the chance for them to give you the very best solution. And you're probably going to be working with these vendors on multiple projects, so if you keep them happy, that will lead to better quotes in the future. Just as I said in the previous slide, you want to give the vendors responding to your request for proposal a detailed and accurate picture of your modalities and their capabilities. In particular, be really specific about any modality older than 5 years. Modality vendors come out with new models with new features and improvements about every 5 years. The average age of MRI scanners in the United States is 11.4 years. So think about that. New scanner every 5 years, the average age is 11.4 years. When hospitals spend several $1 million on an MRI machine, they're going to use it until it dies. And I'm picking on MRI here because it's the most expensive, but the principle is true for all modalities. Understand that you will have antiquated modalities, and you have to pay particular attention to if they can work with the newest software. Understand the workflow at your facility from the point the patient enters the radiology workflow to the point they leave the radiology workflow is massively important. You need to understand in the most thorough and detailed way exactly what each person who interacts with the patient needs from the software or product you are considering purchasing. If you screw this up and someone in that workflow chain can't complete their part of the work, your project fails. If the new software makes their job more difficult or takes longer to complete their task, well, then your project fails and your reputation takes a hit. Think of it this way. The new product you just installed causes the radiologist to use 4 mouse clicks to complete a task that they were able to do in 2 clicks in the old system. They will never let you forget that you made their job more difficult. And that's the level of understanding you need to have here. How many mouse clicks does it take to do each task? Nobody enjoys a project that goes on forever. You want to set some expectations on how long you want the project to run. Also, you want to put in your RFP whether you want to have a big bang go live where the new system gets turned on and everybody starts using it right away, or if you have a phased-in approach where one part of the organization starts using the new system and then you bring other parts online with the new system as it's appropriate. The new software or system you're going to purchase and install will need to expand or contract depending on how your organization is trending. You're going to have this new system for many years, and assuming your procedural volume in 2025 will be exactly the same as it is in 2020 is just plain ignorant. I guarantee it will be higher or lower than it is now. Not having that scalability built into your new system is going to catch up to you at some point. In radiology, there's a high probability that any project, whether it's a new system or new software, is going to have workstation needs. Either your existing workstation have to be able to run the new system software, or the project requires new workstations. Either way, the 9 points on this slide are the key workstation components you need to specify in your RFP. In your RFP, you obviously need to include any information systems that you need the new product to integrate with. The obvious ones to consider: does a new product need to connect to the RIS or the HIS? But also remember to include more specialized information systems that might come into play. If your new product is mammo-specific, it will need to integrate with your mammo information system. If your new product is CT or MRI specific, it may need to integrate with your 3D visualization software or your orthopedic templating software. And this ties back to slide 7 and why it's so critical to understand the clinical workflow. This gets overlooked so often in an RFP. It's not until the project is underway that the project team begins to formulate how they're going to train staff to use the new product. And that's when you find out that having the vendor provide training is an additional cost you didn't include in your RFP. Your RFP should have a section that identifies what groups in the organization need training and how you plan to deliver that training. You want to make sure the vendor includes any training costs in their response to your RFP. Chances are you are the first line support for this new product. You want to know what resources are available to help you support this product. You should include these questions in your RFP. What you don't want is for the project to end and the new system to go live and you feel like you are on an island all by yourself trying to support a new system that you only learned a few months ago. That's an unpleasant feeling. Most projects have a point where the purchaser signs off and formally accepts the product. This usually happens at the end of the project right before the new system goes live. Sometimes it's after the first clinical use of the new system. Either way, you need to figure out a testing criteria to use to validate that the system you purchased is working correctly and it's meeting your expectations. And this can be really easy if the software has a simple function or you're replacing an existing system with a new one. If you're replacing a system, you know what you want it to do. It gets more challenging if it's a new product or service that you aren't familiar with. In that case, your acceptance criteria may evolve and change over the course of the project, but it's just important to have one. Last but not least, the evaluation criteria. If your RFP, you want to prioritize the features you want. Some are going to be absolute must-haves, and others are going to be things that are nice-to-have type features. Chances are all the vendors you send your RFP will be able to meet the core required features on your list, and it's the nice-to-have features that most likely will end up being the deciding factor in which bid you accept. Also be sure to ask about reference sites and site visits. If you don't know, a reference site is a hospital or clinic that is already using the vendor's product and will talk to you or provide you with information about why they like that product. A site visit is when the vendor takes you to a site that is using their product and you get to walk around and see the product in action and talk to the people using it. In my experiences, going on a site visit is a lot of fun. Also, in my experiences, being the show site, not a lot of fun, and hopefully you're getting a lot of something back from your vendor if you're being a show site for them. So, wow, this has gotten really long. Anyway, those are the 15 elements you should have in a radiology-specific RFP, and thank you for watching.